There's a point in every trader's journey where they're about to quit. Not because they're stupid, not because the market is rigged, but because they've hit the wall that looks exactly like failure, and they can't see the other side of it yet. I almost quit. I was maybe 3 years in. I'd been grinding. I'd learned the basics. I understood risk management. I could read a chart, but I wasn't making consistent money. Some weeks I was up, most weeks I was down. And I was starting to wonder if this was just a talent thing, if some people had it and I didn't. I had a conversation with an old trader at the time. I told him I was thinking about getting out, that maybe this wasn't for me, that the effort wasn't worth the results. And he said something I've never forgotten. He said, "You're not failing, you're in the curve." I didn't know what he meant, but he explained it to me and it changed everything. There's a pattern to how people learn complex skills. It's called the curve of competence. It looks like this. You start out knowing nothing. You're incompetent, but you don't know it. You're excited. Everything is new. You read a book, learn a pattern, and you think you've figured it out. You're going to be a trader. You're going to be rich. Then you practice a little bit, and the incompetence becomes apparent. You take some losses. You make mistakes. But you're still motivated because you're learning. You're seeing improvements. Not in your P&L necessarily, but in your understanding. You can read a chart better than you could a month ago. You understand support and resistance. You're getting better. This phase lasts a few months, maybe a year. And then something happens. The learning stops translating to results. You know more than you did. You're technically better, but your account isn't growing. In fact, it might be shrinking. And that's when most people quit, because they think, I'm doing the work, I'm learning, why isn't it working? And they don't realize they're in the middle of a transition. They're not becoming incompetent, they're becoming competent. But competence looks a lot like failure when you're in the middle of it. When I was in my 3rd year, I knew so much more than I did when I started. I could spot reversals. I understood momentum. I knew how to read volume. I could manage risk. I had a process. But my results were actually worse than my 1st year. My 1st year, I'd gotten lucky a few times, made some money, felt like a genius. By year 3, the luck had worn off, and what was left was a trader who knew too much to be reckless, but not enough to be consistent. I was trapped in the middle. And the middle is the worst place to be because it's where you can see how much you still don't know. A beginner doesn't know what he doesn't know, so he's optimistic. A master knows what he doesn't know, and he's learned to work around it. But someone in year 3? He knows what he doesn't know, and he can't work around it yet. So he's frustrated, confused, losing money to problems he can identify but can't solve. That's the curve, and I was deep in it. Here's what the curve actually looks like over time. You start at 0, incompetence, but you're excited, so you feel like you're going somewhere. Then you enter the learning phase. You're still not good, but you're getting better every week. It's obvious to you that you're improving, so even though your results suck, you feel like you're on the right track. This lasts about 6 months to a year, and then you hit a wall. The wall is where you've learned the fundamentals, but you haven't integrated them into an actual trading system. You know what to do, but you don't know how to do it consistently. You understand the concepts intellectually, but you can't execute them under pressure. This wall can last for months, sometimes years, and it looks like you're getting worse, not better. Your P&L is down. Your confidence is shattered. You're making mistakes you thought you'd already learned not to make. It feels like you're regressing, like all the work you did in the 1st year was pointless. But you're not regressing. You're integrating. Your brain is learning to do the things you've studied without having to think about them. It's a process. It takes time, and it's invisible. You can't measure it. All you can measure is that your account is getting smaller. So people quit. They see the downward curve and they think, "This isn't working. I'm not cut out for this. I'm moving on." And they never get to the other side of the wall. I was almost one of those people. It was a specific day, a Thursday. I'd just had my 5th losing week in a row. 5 weeks of grinding, following my process, managing risk, doing everything I thought I was supposed to do, and losing money every single week. I did the math. At this rate, I'd blow my account in another month or two. And then I'd have to start over, or quit entirely. I remember sitting at the desk that evening looking at the numbers and thinking, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? There has to be an easier way to make money. And I almost quit. I really did. But I had that conversation with the old trader fresh in my mind, the one about the curve. And I thought, maybe I'm just in the curve. Maybe this is normal. So instead of quitting, I did something different. I stopped trying to win. I stopped looking at my P&L. I stopped measuring success by whether I made or lost money that week. And I started measuring success by whether I followed my process. That sounds like a small shift, but it was huge. Because now I had a metric I could actually control. I couldn't control whether the market made me money, but I could control whether I followed my plan. The next 3 months were brutal. My account continued to shrink. I was still losing money, but I was losing it in a different way. I was losing it while following my process perfectly. And that mattered. Because if my process was sound and the market was just not cooperating, then eventually the market would cooperate and the process would pay. But if I was losing money and not following my process, then I had 2 problems, and I'd never figure out which one was the actual issue. So I just kept chopping, following the plan, taking the losses, not deviating. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, something started to shift. Not in my results, in my execution. I stopped second-guessing my entries. I stopped moving my stops around based on emotion. I stopped trying to squeeze extra points out of every trade. I just did the thing, over and over, same way, every day. And after about 3 months of that, my P&L started to shift. Not dramatically, but noticeably. Winning weeks started to appear. Not every week, but more often. And by month 6, I was consistently profitable. Not rich, but consistent. That's the curve. You start incompetent and excited. You become slightly competent, and you're still excited because you can see the progress. Then you hit the wall. You become more competent technically, but your results don't show it. You can't see the progress anymore. All you can see is the losses. And this is where 90% of traders quit. They think they've failed. They think they don't have it. They think the market is rigged, or they're not smart enough, or they don't have the right setup. But they're not failing. They're in the transition. They're in the part of the curve where competence is building, but results haven't caught up yet. And if they can just stay there a little longer, if they can just keep following the process even though the process isn't paying off yet, the curve will flip. And it will flip hard. Because once you've internalized the fundamentals, once you've stopped having to think about whether you should take a trade and you just know, once risk management becomes automatic instead of conscious, that's when the results come. That's when you come out the other side of the wall. I've watched this happen to a lot of traders. The ones who make it are not the most talented. They're the ones who understand the curve. They're the ones who can look at 5 losing weeks and think, I'm executing well. The market will eventually cooperate. I'm in the curve. Instead of, this isn't working. I need to quit. The difference is small, but it determines everything. The hard part about the curve is that it doesn't feel like progress. When you're learning the basics, progress is obvious. You go from not knowing how to read a candlestick to knowing how to read a candlestick. That's tangible. You can feel it. But when you're in the wall, the progress is invisible. You're learning to execute under pressure. You're learning to trust your process when the market isn't rewarding you. You're learning patience and discipline and the ability to stay calm when everything feels wrong. These things don't show up on a P&L statement, but they're the most important things you'll ever learn as a trader. Here's what I wish someone had told me when I was in year 3 getting destroyed. You're not failing. Your brain is integrating knowledge into instinct. This takes time. You can't speed it up by working harder or studying more or changing your system. You can only speed it up by staying consistent while your brain does the work. The curve is real. It's not a lie people tell to make themselves feel better. It's a documented pattern in how humans learn complex skills. And if you're in it, the best thing you can do is stop measuring yourself by results and start measuring yourself by execution. Did you follow your process today? If yes, you won. Doesn't matter if you made or lost money. You did what you were supposed to do. Do that enough times, and the other side of the wall will appear. I think about the traders who quit right before it clicked. Not right before they would have gotten rich, just right before the consistency would have started. Right before the curve would have turned. They were 3 months away, maybe 6 months away, and they gave up. And somewhere there's another trader who took those 3 months, who kept doing the work even though the work wasn't paying off yet, who understood the curve and trusted it. And that trader got to see what the other side looks like. So why do most traders quit right before it clicks? Because the curve looks identical to failure. It looks like you're not good enough. You're making the same mistakes. You're not improving. Your system doesn't work. But it's not failure. It's the invisible part of the journey where your brain is learning something that can't be measured by money, where your execution is improving even though your results aren't, where you're about to break through, but you can't see it from the inside. The traders who quit are the ones who can't tell the difference. They see the downward curve and they think it's over. They don't realize it's the middle of the beginning. The traders who make it are the ones who understand this wall is part of the process. This losing phase is part of the process. This moment where it feels like nothing is working and I'm throwing good money after bad, this is the exact moment before the curve turns, and they keep going.